if you're going to watch stuff like this, if you're going to watch degrading, disrespectful, just dominant things like this on TV or on the internet, usually it costs you about $19.99 a month, and you have to go through a private browser to even find these kind of videos. This is something that Mel Gibson wouldn't have even produced. This was one of the most disrespectful, disgusting displays of humanity I've ever seen in my entire life. This was. If I was Jerry Jones, let me say this first. I honestly believe if I was the GM of the Dallas Cowboys, I could have the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship game within the next 5 years. This is the most talented roster that has the most underperforming results, maybe in the history of sports. Let's look at the rest of the NFC East. Let's just take the NFC East. How many teams in the NFC East, besides the Cowboys, would CD Lamb be the best player on the team? Probably all three. The only other player I can think of is like Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz might be considered a better player than CD Lamb as far as like the team or whatever. But he's definitely the best player on the Redskins. He's definitely the best player on the Giants. And he's the second receiver. How many players on those teams is Ezekiel Elliott the best player on the team? Again, the only other player is Carson Wentz. How many teams is Amari Cooper the best player on the team? Again, it's just Carson Wentz. So you're looking at this team, and then let's just say let's throw Dak Prescott in there. Dak Prescott is probably the best player in the division. They have easily, probably the 4 best players in the entire division. And this team right here is like, what? 7 wins every year, 8 wins every year for the past 5 years. They haven't been to a conference championship game since 1995. Bruv, the white Power Ranger was still the Green Ranger in 1995. All right, the Cowboys somehow are like, they still live in this, like, the Dallas Cowboys. And I fall for this, honestly, because I like the Dallas Cowboys, like who they are. Every time they're on prime time, I like to watch them. I root for the Cowboys, I would say. Like I'm not like a Cowboys fan, but I like to see them do good. They're like the Yankees. I feel like the NFL is better when the Cowboys are good. Well, the Cowboys have not been good. The Cowboys have been exciting. Like Tony Romo had some exciting teams. Dak has had some exciting teams, but they're exciting to the first round of the playoffs, and that's about it. For what the Cowboys are, for what Jerry Jones is, for Jerry World, for the players they have, it's just crazy. It's just crazy how little they've achieved. Now let's talk about Mike McCarthy. If I was Jerry Jones, I would have walked onto the field and fired Mike McCarthy in front of God and everybody on Monday Night Football the second Mike McCarthy chose to kick a 58-yard field goal down 28-3 at home. There is no explaining that. Now, this is the same guy who in the same season decided to not kick a field goal to tie the game in LA with like 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It was like a 35-yard field goal. So what that shows me is that Mike McCarthy has totally lost the feel of the game. And it happens. Have y'all ever played like poker or blackjack or even gambling or anything like that where you like lose the feel for the game? It can happen in video games too, where you just like lose the feel. You don't have the feel for the game. You're just mashing buttons, or you're just like randomly betting on numbers. You have no feel. You have no idea. You don't have like a foundation. You don't have like a belief system you can lean on, where it's like, like in FIFA or something, you kind of know the passes, you kind of know what you're trying to do. It feels like Mike McCarthy is just banging the controller, or just randomly betting on things, just randomly doing stuff and hoping for good results. He's completely lost the feel of the game. You do not. You do not have. You're not the same coach within 6 weeks, and you decide to kick a 58-yard field goal down 25 at home, and then you're the same guy who decides not to kick a field goal to tie a game on the road in the fourth quarter with 6 minutes left when the field goal is like a 40-yard field goal. Those two don't add up. So it's obvious that McCarthy's completely lost. They've lost the locker room. I'll tell you this. This is going to get worse. This is going to get worse way before it gets better, because now you're starting to hear Cowboys players come out and say that they don't trust their coaches. You got to fire these guys. I know Jerry probably doesn't want to do that, but you have to fire McCarthy. You have to get rid of Mike Nolan. You have to get rid of these guys. And you have to just try and, at this point, is Dallas, you can't tank. Like, Dallas is one of those franchises where, just like the Lakers or something like that, you can't tank because you're the Dallas Cowboys. Like the Jets, who cares? If Dallas tanks, it's a much bigger deal. Dallas, they're in some real trouble. One of the things I would have done with Dallas a few years ago is I would have not paid Ezekiel Elliott. I don't think there's really any running back that Kamara is like one, Christian McCaffrey's one. There's a couple running backs who I'd pay, but besides them, I just let them walk. The difference, we've done this before on the show, the difference between the 5th ranked running back and the 14th ranked running back is pretty much nothing. So I would have much rather paid Dak than Zeke. And Zeke isn't the whole reason they lost this game, but he's a big part of it. If you lose Dak Prescott and you have Ezekiel Elliott, you have to have Ezekiel Elliott go off. Just like Alvin Kamara. They lost Michael Thomas. Drew Brees has not been or wasn't good at the beginning of the year. So what happened? Alvin Kamara went crazy. And that's what you need from a big player. You don't need Dak Prescott to go down and then Dak Prescott still be the leader of the team. They said that when he visited the team this week, it was like a huge boom for the team, and he's still leading basically from a hospital bed. And then Zeke Elliott, when the team is on his shoulders, has 12 carries for 49 yards and 2 fumbles. That ain't it. All right? Like, that ain't the move. That ain't it. I'm honestly surprised Dallas hasn't fired everybody. Like, Jerry is not the kind of guy to get embarrassed like this on primetime and take it lightly. He's got to do something. Andy Dalton was really, really, really bad in this game, but it's Andy Dalton. I was talking to my dad about this before the game. He was asking what I thought about Andy Dalton, and I told him Andy Dalton's capable, but there is a reason Andy Dalton is not a starting quarterback in the NFL, right? People, this is something that I think people get really mixed up, and this is like a narrative thing. The idea of like a really good backup quarterback. Backup quarterbacks are, you can get a capable one, but unless you draft one, if you like sign a backup quarterback or if you like get one from free agency, they're only so good because if they were actually good, they'd be starting in the NFL. Does that make sense? Think about how bad some of these starting quarterbacks are, like Gardner Minshew, Dwayne Haskins, guys like that. Andy Dalton's worse than them in the eyes of these GMs, in the eyes of these owners, because he's not on a team. So whenever you hear in the mass media, the mass sports media, all the people that wish they could do what I do on a daily basis, they were telling you Andy Dalton is the same as Dak Prescott. They were telling you that the Dallas offense will look the same with Andy Dalton as it does with Dak Prescott. They were telling you that Andy Dalton is probably the best backup quarterback in the NFL, so this team will be fine. Well, lo and behold, that's not true. That's not true at all, right? That's not even close. Andy Dalton sucks. You want to know why Andy Dalton sucks? Because he's a backup quarterback. Daniel Jones needs to come before. Daniel Jones is in the same. That's how bad Daniel Jones is. You know you're bad when you're not even on my list of bad quarterbacks because you're so irrelevant. But yeah, Daniel Jones is on that list. They're all the same. But yeah, Daniel Jones is bad for sure. He's bad. He's real bad. But there's a bunch of them. I mean, it's not just them. But those are just the ones that I immediately thought of. But that might be even worse when you're Daniel Jones, when you're not even getting brought up because you're so. I just forget you even exist as a human being. You don't want to be forgotten that you even exist. I'll tell you that much. But Haskins is awful. But so Dalton sucks. Like let's not get it twisted. You know he's terrible. But there's a lot of other issues with Dallas. Dallas has to get rid of McCarthy. They have to get rid of Nolan. They have to get rid of these guys. You don't lose a game like this at home and survive. You don't lose a game like this at home and keep your job. And that's just it. Dallas, if it was me, I'll tell you what I would do. After this season, I'd walk my ass right into Oklahoma University. I'd walk right into the football offices. I'd sit down. And I'd say, all right, here's a check. Here's Here you go. You just tell me. You tell me how much you want to get paid, and then I'd go from there. That's it. I'd be walking around with a blank check offering all these guys, Lincoln Riley. I'd be offering Sean McVay, Sean Payton, all these guys, even in different teams. I'd say, look, how much do you want to make? Where's your favorite vacation spot? Where's your Kyle Shanahan? I'd say, where is your favorite spot? Do you ever wish you could vacation somewhere? Do you ever wish you could own an island? Here's a blank check. Sign it. That's the first step for Dallas, is to figure out who the hell is the head coach. I mean, you got to think. Dallas has been maligned with Jason Garrett. They've been maligned now with Mike McCarthy for how long, right? Like, it's been way too long where they haven't had any kind of coach. So I think it is time for Dallas to do that first and then to move forward. The next step then would be to decide Dak Prescott. Is Dak hurt? If he's too hurt after his injury, if you don't think he can be back to the player who he is, get rid of him. Ezekiel Elliott, I'd get rid of him as soon as I could anyways. I'd either trade him, cut him, doesn't matter, get rid of him, move on from him too. Then you either make a move for Trevor Lawrence, you either go find somebody else, or wait a few years and draft whoever the top guy is. That's the move. They need to make like a Ricky Williams style trade to get their franchise quarterback. It's time for that. I'll tell you this. This is like Madden talk. I don't know if Dallas could put together the package, and it doesn't matter because they have Mike McCarthy, so they got to get a coach first. But let's just say you get Lincoln Riley. Let's say you called Cincinnati and said, hey, Cincy, what do you want for Joe Burrow? You tell me. We'll give you a Ricky Williams style ransom. We'll give you first round picks for the next 3 or 4 years. We'll give you Ezekiel Elliott. We'll give you whatever. Who cares? Who gives a shit? You just start calling people. The Dallas Cowboys have to get desperate at that level. They can't just keep doing this where it's Mike McCarthy and whoever, the Jason Garretts and all that stuff. And not going to happen. Yeah, I mean, the Joe Burrow thing might not happen, but you call all those teams. You call every team and you say, what do you want? What's the possibilities? What are we looking at? And you just start making phone calls, and that's it. And you just get desperate. You're like, you're just calling the world. You're buying the unlimited monthly pass for Tinder, and you're swiping right on every single person just to see who's interested, and then you go from there. That's what Dallas needs to do. But this season sunk because Dalton's not the answer. Ezekiel Elliott. When's the last time he was good? I mean, when's the last time Zeke was actually good?